Please. Today, the Water Bureau meeting regular meeting of March 31st, 2025. Do we have any public comments related to agenda items? Yes.
Judy Allen, West Hartford. My comment is sort of in the form of a question. As I was reading the ordinance for the dedicated fire service in non-member towns, I may not have that right, words right. My question is more, does that apply to all non-member towns existing that rate would be changed? Or just to new customers? That was unclear. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone on the phone? Okay. Okay, next, the independent consumer advocate comments and questions relative to agenda items. Come on up.
Elizabeth Tavelli, independent consumer advocate. Also on the ordinance, I noticed that the term dedicated fire service was used. I took a quick look at the water ordinances. I do not see a defined term, dedicated water ordinance. It's my understanding that this is in reference to a dedicated line as opposed to a combi line. And I do not pretend to understand what differentiating factor that may have. I'm curious what properties maybe have differentiated lines, if there's any reason why they're excluded from this reduction in the surcharge. And I would encourage the commissioners to look at that as it proceeds through committee. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you. We'll address that. Anyone else? Oh, no. Okay, so approval of the meeting minutes of January 27th, 2025. Do I have a motion? So moved. Got a motion and a second. Any questions, deletions? Very good. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? Abstain? Okay. Motion carries. Number 5, consideration of potential action regarding encroachment agreement, Concourse Park redevelopment at Forbes Street and Silver Lane, East Hartford. Who would that? Oh, Michael.
Yep, Mike Kerr. Oh, that was loud, sorry. Manager of Engineering. So this site is the former Showcase Cinema site, and it's just north of Charter Oak Plaza. We have a 30-inch transmission main with a 30-foot wide easement running right through the middle of it. So the west side's going to be developed. It's all residential. They're going to be putting in like 406 units or something around those. So, and they're going to build it in phases. They'll work on the west side first, and then they're going to build one large building on the east side. The auto building, they'll call that. So there, we have Jasco Development LLC. They actually submitted the, in the letter they're mentioned, they were the initial requesters. They're now changed to Jasco Zelman 1 LLC, and then ultimately there will be a JZ Auto LLC coming in later. They're currently, this site is currently owned by the town, and they're going to be wrapping up their purchase of the property in April. There's a lot going on here. The map may be a little confused just looking at it, but I'll walk you through it. We have, they have a demolition phase. Right now, the cinema building is already taken down. It's all parking lot right now. So they're going to completely remove all of the pavement out there. They're going to abandon some of the old lines, drainage and gas lines, and they're going to have to install a temporary bridge to be able to get over the transmission main. This bridge will be moved up to 3 times, and this is mainly for the heavy construction that they're going to be using on there. The cover over this pipe does vary. It is deep. It has 5 feet, in some places 3.5 feet. So we're not going to take any chances, so they're going to be putting this temporary bridge there. They're going to be basically removing the easement area that's going to be impacted is about a half an acre in size. And they're going to be digging down, changing the grades. They'll be going down 2 feet and filling up to 4 feet. They're going to be crossing with a whole bunch of utilities. There's going to be 24 different utilities going through there. They're going to be installing a new water main, new gas lines. The gas line's going to require a new easement across our easement. The electrical lines, there's 24 of them. They're going to be bunched in 6 locations, and they're also going to require an easement as well. They're also going to be crossing with drainage lines, and all the full restoration will be what you see pretty much right now with more traffic islands and other things, like mostly parking. What we did with them that was special was we made sure that all of the smaller utilities actually went over the top of the transmission main. All right, instead of going underneath there, the only thing going underneath there is a sewer line and a water line. So that minimizes the risk to us and to everyone. We think a lot of this is very feasible in the way it's currently designed. They have agreed to the 7 stipulations listed in here. And so we recommend a formal encroachment agreement with them as long as it's done after the purchase and sale agreement.
Questions for
If
Mike?
there's any questions.
Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Bud?
Mike, who provided this drawing to MDC?
That is taken out, excuse me, that's taken out of the design drawings. We get the CAD drawings and we make that plan that you see there, that agenda map. So we tried, it's this one in particular is very detailed. It does show all of the encroachments. So we're trying to show a lot there. I do admit that it is difficult to see, but it's all represented in the language, in the text of the resolution.
I'm asking, if I may, Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
follow
ma'am.
up. I'm asking simply because I'm curious of, do we ever take these to the towns to verify their accuracy before they come to us?
Yes, they have to go through the town always first.
No.
So-
Do we have anything to document that the town agrees with this drawing and to its accuracy?
Yes, they usually go through planning and zoning first.
No, I'm saying, do we have anything from the town that said this is correct?
I would say so, I would say yes right now. I just don't have it with me right now. It would be in the form of an approval, a site plan approval for and it would show all of the site utilities.
And I don't
crossings.
disagree. I'm only questioning whether, how do we know that this is the same plan that they presented to the town and to PNC and all those boards and commissions that they need to float this through to get approval? How do we know that's the,
Well, this,
I'm asking, where are the amenities, like swimming pools and everything else
yeah.
that's included that I don't see on this plan?
yes, we don't show, this is focusing on the encroachment itself. It doesn't show the whole site plan, but we have full site plan drawings that show all of the activity that's happening on site. And that, like the extension of our water main, our public water main through the entire site to serve the entire site, as well as the sewer work and all of the other utilities so that we check, so to make sure all the conflicts are taken care of. So that plan's a separate, this is only like an excerpt, a special plan for this particular meeting. So hope that answers your question. But we do get an approved plan that's been approved by the town, and it starts with the planning and zoning.
And I'm concerned about this project to begin with. But I'm concerned that, okay, we say this is fine, we approve it, and then they decide where the pool's going to go and other amenities that they're going to build, and they go, oh, well, we can't put it there because of right away or whatever the case may be, so, and they never get built. So you're telling me you have something that will show where those amenities, and you've compared this to that, and
Yes,
those amenities will fit?
yes. So this plan is the latest plan that was approved and just replicated here for this submission.
I'm not
So
sure-
I'm not saying
not
that there
sure
won't
you've
be
answered my
changes.
question, so.
Yeah.
But I think, Scott, you understand what my
Yeah, the question, Mike, is do you have a plan from the developer to the town where the town approved that plan? Which
I
includes
believe so, yes. With a stamped approval by the town,
Approval by the
everybody
town.
signing off on it, yes.
Can we just get a copy of that?
Sure.
Make sure that it answers the question. The question, I think, is
Yeah,
that we don't want the developer, us approving the development when the town hasn't approved the development, you know, is there a
Right.
pool, is there a pool table or a pool, swimming pool, part of the development? So let's just look at that date of that and a letter from the town as to the approval
right,
of the development itself.
okay.
Okay, not the easement, but the development.
Thank you.
Mr. Fleming?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike, you know, the area, I'm familiar with this area that we're talking about. My understanding is, you know, it's always had a high water table.
Microphone,
You know, continues to have sort of a high water table in this area. So for for the construction, it's going to be done by the contractor. We're going to do the inspections of the work and everything. But do we have, you know, any kind of additional protections because of that? And the reason that I'm thinking about it is like, you know, we understand in the north end of Hartford, we're struggling to go back and make sure that groundwater is not winding up at the sewage treatment plant, you know, by leaking in all over the place from manholes and laterals and so forth. I'm not saying that this would happen in the beginning, but all the work and all the materials and everything that's designed to go in this do reflect the fact that this is all a high water table and that, you know, we need that kind of protection for, you know, for the plant and in East Hartford. Am I correct in understanding that? I'm sure
Yes.
it is, but.
Yes. So you'll see on the glimpse in this plan, there's, in the background, you'll see these large stormwater detention systems for
Yeah,
dealing with
that's what I was-
stormwater on
yep,
site.
yep, yep.
Yes, and when they know, because it's separate, we have a separated system there, none of that groundwater or footing drains or anything like that goes in our sewer at all. It's prohibited.
Okay, I know that we don't want, you know, we designed it so that it doesn't. I just want everybody else to understand that we're being
Correct.
careful about this too, because they don't have a great way to get this water out of there. You know,
Yes,
It's
they-
a little difficult for them to get it out of there, so.
Yes, so the plan doesn't show this, but on the north part of the page, there's a huge wetland. So on this plan, you'll see the auto building, and behind the auto building will be this large wetland, and that's where they're discharging after they detain it and control the storm, it'll be draining into that wetland.
Okay, great, thanks, Mike, I appreciate it.
Commissioner Patel? You have a question? You all set?
It was answered.
It was answered. Anyone else? Oh, Gail?
Yeah, thank you. In reading the various things that are, I guess, crossing the easement, I see something called 4-inch electric and telecommunication conduits in up to 6 locations.
Yes,
So those are conduits to carry those utilities?
they're for electricity and for like fiber optic communication only. Those aren't the only crossings. But we're working with the design engineer to make sure that they're spaced far enough apart, so if we have to dig up the line or do anything like that, and they're lumped together and they're concrete encased and they're going over the main, so they won't be exposed in the main itself.
So I'm asking this because I'm going to sneak in something that got eliminated from the agenda, which is burying underground utilities.
Vice Chair, yes.
And I'm just wondering, are these the types of conduits that could be used to bury underground utilities if you wanted to do so on a block of a particular street? If you understand the question.
Well, this in particular, those conduits themselves are specific for electric and telecommunications. We wouldn't use them for anything else.
But if we were going to bury,
Yes,
not we, the MDC burying water and sewer, if we were going to bury if anybody was going to bury electric and telecommunication on the
Yeah.
street,
Yeah.
these are the types of conduits.
They could do that, yes. In fact, yes, we're working with Eversource right now for a 115 kW conduit that's going to be running underneath the road, underneath everything, and tunneling right across Hartford. So, yes, that similar technique, but this is for really small, unique to this, but they can get very large.
All right, thank you
They're
very much.
concrete encased.
We will address that, John. Anyone else? Yes,
Just through you,
Commissioner.
this 30-inch pipe, it looks as though it goes underneath I-84. Is there a redundant pipe in case something gets,
I don't believe so, Dave.
I don't know which
there is
way the
not.
water's flowing, if it's going north or south here on this, is there redundancy if something happens?
There is not. Yeah. So it appears to be, it's part of a larger, it's one section of a larger system that's, there is redundancy in there.
To go north or
But
south?
nothing, there's no two pipes going across I-84.
All right. So care must be taken.
But it
Yeah,
is
all right.
looped.
That's the reason why this is very important.
Yeah, okay.
And in part, I think, in part, this development, kind of took a pause, and I think, because, and not because, but this was one of the issues the development, had to understand the importance of the care that needs to be taken of developing around this 30-inch main. Yeah. Yeah, sorry, through the chair, sorry about that.
Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Gale.
No more questions for Mike, but when we come to the resolution, I have some comments on the resolution.
Okay. There's no more questions? And why don't you go ahead and address that then, John?
Thank you.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So on the resolution that's in front of us, it seems that I'm going to recommend a couple of changes, and the first one was mentioned by Mike. The developer seems to have changed, and the resolution talks about Jasco Development LLC, but in other letters here, it identifies them as Jasco Zellman 1 LLC, so I'm not sure which is the correct one, but I think we better get the correct one
Yeah.
in our resolution. And I think Mike said it was Jasco Zellman 1 LLC.
It was an evolution of some kind, yes.
So that would be my first proposed amendment. The second amendment, and admittedly, I don't have tremendous familiarity with the way these things are written, but as I'm reading it, I'm saying to myself, well, where's the indemnity for the MDC in case they damage something? So I throw in a little 2I here and say that, that they must indemnify the district for any damage done to MDC property. Now, maybe that's assumed in all of these things, but I didn't see it in there, so I proposed that it be put in there. And the last comment I have is that this agreement, that state, again, I assume that it's understood by everybody that these agreements are going to run with the land, but I don't see the language in here, so I would propose that we include a subsection D at the end that says such agreement shall run with the land to be binding on all future owners.
Question perhaps best suited for district council on that?
Well, Chris Stone, the first, there is indemnity provision in the actual agreement. It doesn't say it in the resolution. There's an indemnity, very general one, item number 6. We can, as you see in the resolution, it's subject to agreement subject to form and content by district council, so we'll make sure we include I'll call it a weightier indemnification provision than what's contained in section 6 of the conditions. And what was the second one, John? I'm sorry.
That it runs with the land.
Yeah, we can put in there that is there a recording section in this thing, Mike?
Yes.
So we'll add that language to that section. That's fine.
This is John Myrtle. Subparagraph C says the agreement's not effective until executed and recorded on the land records.
Good. Okay. And then as far as Chris, as far as John's question about the name, it does say in the resolution that there were 3 entities collectively referred to as JASCO.
Yeah, that's changed a couple times since this whole thing started. So our latest version, Mike, or developer is Jasco Zelman 1 LLC, correct?
Correct.
So we'll change that, and I consider, certainly, I welcome that amendment to make sure that we have the right name, but I think they're the same entities, same individuals, but they're separate LLCs, so they're a separate entity, and we should have the right one.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, this is John Myrtle.
Go ahead, John.
District Council. My understanding is Jasco Development LLC was buying the bulk of the parcels, and then that Zelman 1 was buying one parcel. Is that accurate, Mike? So I think collectively it might be beneficial to be overbroad and include all of them, because my understanding is both entities will have an ownership interest when the town transfers the land.
Yes, so
That's a yes or no?
yes, that's,
Are there two
No.
developers, co-developers?
there's going to be, yes, so let me just, when the purchase, when it's sold and purchased by the developer, it's going to be Jasco Zelman 1 LLC. They're going to be the fee owner of the land. So we're expecting, however, there is a JZ Auto LLC that's going to ultimately get one of the buildings, the big auto building on the east side. So that's going to happen sometime in the future. We don't know when that's going to happen, but they're mentioning it here just to full disclosure.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris Stone. Just to be clear, Mike, there's one developer, Jasco Zelman 1, correct?
Correct.
Eventually, that developer, post-development, may sell a parcel and building to someone else.
JZ Auto
But
LLC.
that's after all the work's been done, and that's after the need for
Yes.
the encroachment agreement in effect expires, because everything's been completed. Is that correct?
Correct.
So I think, to Commissioner Gale's point, the proper person, this one developer, should be Jasco Zelman 1 LLC, correct?
Correct.
You're the only one? Okay. So, Commissioner Gale, if you want to make that amendment, that would be appropriate.
Sure, move to amend the resolution to replace Jasco Development LLC with Jasco Zelman 1 LLC.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now for the main motion. Do I have a motion?
So I'll move for I'll move
That's
for
amended, right?
Yep, as amended.
Okay, do I have a second? Second? Anyone?
Second.
Second, okay. Any discussion on that?
Just for clarification, I understood our counsel to say that the two issues that I raised are kind of built in to the MDC's approval of the form and content of the easement. Am I correct in that?
Yes.
You are.
Okay. Nothing further. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Item number 6, discussion of potential action regarding revisions of water supply ordinance regarding charges on fire services and non-member towns. Referral of draft ordinance revision to Committee on MDC Government.
Yeah, if I may.
Jellison,
Yes,
yes, go ahead,
thank
please.
you, Mr. Chairman. So we, if I could just go back in history, remember our non-member towns, a business or a building, a residence, as a non-member town, you have a customer service charge on your water meter, just like MDC, member towns. But you also have a non-member town, so you pay it twice for the same fee. If you remember, we raised that rate back in 2013, and we had a lawsuit, and we brought that fee back down so it's equal to the customer service charge for all the member towns. They just pay twice for a non-member town. What we're going to talk about today is we also have been implementing through the board fire services. So to Judy Allen's question, this is for all non-member towns, and we have typically utilized combo services. So the one service feeds fire and feeds meter, and the challenge with that combo service is one, it doesn't meet the billing code, and two, it's very difficult to have a meter that reads a very low meter reading for domestic service, yet can handle large services. So it doesn't give us a correct reading. It can't do both. So as we started to implement fire service meters on our fire services, we're charging per the ordinance for all of our towns, including non-member towns. Now you get a fire meter, you have to pay a customer service charge on the fire meter. So in a member town, you're paying a customer service on your meter. You might have a residential size under 1 inch customer service charge, but you might have a fire service, and that fire service charge is per the chart, and it ranges. The larger the service size, the larger the meter, the larger the customer service charge. But now take non-member towns. So non-member town, they're paying 2 customer service charges on their domestic water meter. And if it's combo, there's only 1 meter, so they're paying 2 customer service charges on that meter. But then when we add a fire service and or a fire meter, they're paying twice as well. So in hindsight, the reason why we're here tonight is we do have a few customers that are raising issues about the costs. And what we wanted Water Bureau was to understand this issue. It complies fully with the ordinances, but the question is, was that the intent? And should we reconsider or not that ordinance? So with that, Chris, you want to step up and give a little details on some of the costs associated with that duplication of meters on the fire. It was very important to install meters on the fire service. We have a lot of lost water, and as per PURA, we're not regulated by PURA, but we do report lost water. We report it to the legislature as well as part of our annual report. And so a lot of lost water is caused by not being metered, and a lot of fire services are not metered. And so you can have a large facility like an Amazon that utilizes lots of water during their fire tests, and it might be a monthly, and we're not getting paid for that, and we can't record it. So that's why we started installing fire services on large fire services. But Chris, just give us a little feel for what it might be an additional cost for a non-member town.
Sure. So for a non-member town that has as Scott mentioned, a domestic service, so they could have, say it's a warehouse building, so they'll have a 4-inch domestic service, or it could be a 2-inch domestic service. So they have little use for domestic water, maybe a couple bathrooms in the facility. But what they do have a large requirement for is fire protection. So large warehouses typically have tanks on site, pumps, because they need to be able to supply at least 2 hours worth of water to sustain the fire protection in that building. So their consumption of water on a monthly basis is higher on the fire side than it is on the domestic side. So so part of that is, so if we look at, and I'll use an example. So for Windsor, if there's a 6-inch fire service, that customer pays $486 every month just on the customer service charge for that meter that's installed on the fire service. Now, the the counter is, say, South Windsor, which is a non-member town. They may have a similar setup. Could be a warehouse, tank, pump associated as well. They have a 6-inch fire service. So they're paying the $486 customer service charge plus the surcharge for a outside of the member town, so the non-member town. So they're paying that again twice. So what the ordinance outlined would do is to eliminate that second charge only for the fire service. Again, if they have a 2-inch domestic, the South Windsor customer would get the 2-inch customer service charge as well as the surcharge for non-member town. So it's only removing the charge, the additional charge for fire services. And not, and to Scott, what Scott was saying, the combo service would be charged both charges because it's supplying both domestic and fire.
And if I may, sure. So we're not suggesting anything. We're suggesting that this is something that has really raised an issue and I want the board to understand it. The board can do nothing, but the intent of a non-member town is you pay a customer service charge on your meter, and you pay a non-member town customer service charge, and most likely it's the same fee because you got one meter. But now, as we've broadened our need to install a meter on a fire service, now our member towns are paying a fire service charge, meter charge on that meter. So now an MDC member town is paying 2 customer service charge, one for their domestic use on the meter and one for their fire service use. But the non-member towns are paying 4 times a non-member charge, customer service charge on both meters. So that's 4 customer service charges. And when you get into the larger meters, as Chris mentioned, a 5/8 meter, most residents have a 5/8 meter, that's $14.98, right? But as you grow and grow and grow into a fire service, a 6-inch meter, as Chris mentioned, is $486. A 10-inch meter or an 8-inch meter is $770 bucks a month. So again, we're in compliance with our ordinance. It says we have to charge them per meter size, and all non-member towns have to pay the non-member town charge. But the question is, was that the intent of the ordinances when we were back in 13, when we were trying to raise that rate on our non-member towns? It really is. It's really in full compliance. We just want to make sure that we've got a few customers in our non-member towns that are raising this issue and feel it's not fair, and we want to make sure that the Water Bureau and the full board, if so they decide to change this, that they understand what's happening in our non-member town.
Mr. Slemmy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Scott, just a quick question about this. I mean, most of the district was built without meters on the fire service because it was thought that you don't want anything obstructive, anything that could obstruct flows on the fire service. You need the fires, you need it, and so are we going back in installing these? Are we installing meters on fire service mains now? And what's the criteria for us doing one and not doing another? Or what, is there some, I mean, other than member town, non-member town, what is the criteria? How do we make the choice of which one to do next?
Right. So most of the building code changed, and now the building code requires you to have a separate fire service, even if it's off the same main out the street. You have to have a separate fire service into the building and a separate water service into the building. And so we years ago, as you mentioned, you had one pipe going into the building, and that was metered with 1 meter, and that's why we called them combo meters. And the challenge with those combo meters, we went in 2008, we did a right sizing of the meters, because I'll use East Hartford as a perfect example with Pratt Whitney. You would have some buildings, the water consumption, the meter was sized based on 1965, right? And you had so much consumption for domestic, you had so much consumption for fire service, and we matched the meter as best we could to serve that purpose, dual purpose. Then, as you start to see the water consumption for the domestic start to drop in those buildings, you still have the same fire service need. So it's very difficult to read the meter with the combo units to read at a very low calibration. And so we immediately in 2008 started to change out or redo our combo services. And then what was the date, Chris, we added the new fire service ordinance?
Oh, so just, it was approved and became in effect on January 1st this year. That spelled out the criteria where a meter is required for a fire service and where it's not. So
Yeah.
we've identified that in the ordinance.
Most buildings had a separate service in for fire, but no meter on it.
Yeah, so, so we're installing them net new. So as a customer comes in, we're evaluating that through our availability and capacity process to see how they're utilizing it, and there's certain criteria that we review. Plus, since probably about 2017 or so, the meter technologies have changed, so the meters are now FM approved. That'll allow you to put them on a fire service. So they don't have any obstructions. It's a clear, open diameter, which matches the fire service size. So there's no restrictions in flow, which was historically the issue with fire meters.
When you're talking about fire service, you're talking about sprinklers and standpipes in a building. You're not talking about hydrants. We don't put meters on single hydrants, so.
Well,
But you're talking about a fire suppression system for a facility. We're not talking about my street with 3 fire hydrants on it. We don't put a meter on that.
Yeah, no, but it may, for a private development, it may include the hydrants. So for
Right,
example,
yeah.
depending on how they plumb, the development, right? In some cases, the fire hydrants may be part of the fire service and separated. So in some cases, it could be, include a hydrant, but not on our
On public
not on
road or-
public roads, no.
Okay, well, thank you. I just
No
want to
problem.
make sure I understood that. So we're actually going back and putting meters in where
Right.
we think we need them.
Right, and the ordinance last year defined when and how we do that. But this has raised an issue in our non-member towns to say, it's an added expense, and then the non-member town charge is an additional added expense. So that's the question.
All right, thank you.
Chris, do we know what the financial impact would be if we rolled that back?
Yeah, I'm going to defer to Kelly. Kelly's has done that analysis, but.
If I may, Chris, I don't know if you have this number, but the amount of money we've made on, by adding in the fire services for like the Amazons of the world, do we have a number of revenue that we're gaining on that as well?
Yeah, we ran it last year. I
Amazon's in
think
Windsor.
Kelly may have that number, but it,
Not on the water consumption,
oh. On the consumption or just the?
Well, either the revenue, whatever it might be.
Yeah, we could definitely provide that. I know
Yeah.
we looked at it last year during budget season.
So it
Like
solves
other
two
projections as
issues.
well.
Right, that solves two issues. We're now accounting for lost water that was supposed to be, and we are measuring. And so that, but, some of the fire marshals, because of these large, 1 million square foot warehouse, they're testing their fire services on a regular basis. And that water's ours, and there's no way to get, to measure it or to get compensated for it without putting a meter in. But Kelly, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The analysis Kelly Shane, Chief Administrative Officer. The analysis I did for tonight was I looked at the non-member towns. I looked at 2024. We have not had any new meters added this year yet, dedicated fire meters yet. So last year, we have just 7 fire meters that we added last year. So for the line items that we're identifying as opportunities to take off for non-member towns or to consider taking off, the surcharge for non-member towns, that's the capital, or I'm sorry, the customer service charge, the additional surcharge for the customer service charge, the 3-member towns where we have fire meters, and they're actually all 6-inch meters, and 6-inch meters. Let's see, in total, between the two line items, it's about $84,000 in '24. What I will say is that we will be adding more as new developments come online. But we are getting, again, the one or the other, or both, depending on what you decide. But we are getting the fire service charge and one customer service charge, similar to our member towns as well. And if you choose to leave the capital, the non-member town capital charge, which is one of your options here to take off, you would also have that as well, or vice versa, the 2 customer service charges. So I think what our customer service team, who takes these calls, feels for our customers in non-member towns. There are 7 today. We've received a lot of feedback from 3 of them.
So if I may, Mr. Chair, so the 84,000 represents
Those 2.
seven meters, 7 6-inch fire service meters in our non-member towns, 3 of our non-member towns. So 84,000 is that $486.07 per month. So they're getting charged that twice, right? They're getting a customer service charge for the 6, and they're getting a non-member town charge for the 6. Plus, they're getting charged the customer service charge and the non-member town customer service charge on their domestic meter. They have to pay that because that's what we've been doing forever. But what we're suggesting is that, is it fair to charge them the non-member town on the 6-inch as well? So you're basically cutting, we're making 84,000, but you'd be basically cutting out 42,000, right?
These are just the 2 line items, either the capital or the 1 customer service charge. Yep.
Well, let's not complicate the capital, because
Yeah, about that, yep.
right, we're talking about the fire service customer service charge. We're adding a new fire service meter in. They're getting charged a customer service charge of $486.07, and they're getting a non-member town customer service charge on that same meter. And if we're proposing to remove either both of those customer service charge, it's 84,000. If we're proposing to move one of the customer service charge, the non-member town customer service charge, it would be 42, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So, and we can do nothing. But we do have, and the reason why we're bringing this, is we do have a customer who refuses to pay our bill, and because of this very issue, and we don't want to be in a position of shutting that person off without this issue being addressed at the board level, at the Water Bureau level. So it's up for discussion. We really are just looking for some guidance as to whether, what our intent is, that we're in compliance with the ordinance. You have a meter in a non-member town, you pay a customer service charge and a non-member town customer service charge. Yeah.
Commissioner Gale?
What?
A couple of questions, if I may.
When they sued us.
What would be the cost to these customers if they were getting their water from somebody else?
I don't know how that.
Do we know?
Yes, Scott Jellison. So in a budget cycle, we talk about this. We are in a monopoly by definition through the state of Connecticut legislature and DPH. So we have, our service area is our non-member towns. So they really have no other choice to go anywhere else. But the rate structure, South Windsor is very unique town, because they're in Farmington as well. They're in, you've got Connecticut Water and you've got MDC in the same town. So our water rate, as you know, is $3.91 per CCF. And the and Connecticut Water's water rate is in $8 and change in that same town. So, now granted, some would say, well, you know, Connecticut Water's a for-profit company. Okay, but and they're paying taxes. Okay, but the reality is and we're going to talk about this in the next agenda item. The customers are still paying 3 times the price of the MDC water, and in addition, as I said this in the budget cycle, an unknown fee that the private water utilities are charging the towns is a fire service charge. We charge for the hydrant only $165 this year, right? But the profit and even regional, I said this in the budget cycle, we only charge about 1% plus or minus of our revenue is coming from hydrants. Regional gets 10%, and they're about the same size. So they're making 10 million and change on fire service charges. They don't charge just for the hydrant. They also charge for the linear foot of pipe in your town. And we only charge for the hydrant itself. So
They charge the customer this same order of magnitude, $486 a month customer service charge for a 6-inch pipe.
I don't know if we have those numbers. We've got the residential. I don't know, Chris, if you have the rates for fire services and.
Yeah, they have comparable customer service charges as us. So if they have a fire meter on there, they would apply the customer service charge to that meter size as well. Now,
Not twice.
I can't confirm, but I don't believe so.
But they are charging the town. The town, they're charging their towns. We're charging about $1.5 million a year in fire hydrant fees to our towns. And then the rest is paid for by the customer. Connecticut Water Regional and Aquarion are charging, and I'll use regional because I know their numbers, they're charging about $10 to $11 million in addition to the fire customer service charges to the town itself. So they're
The
splitting.
town doesn't back charge that to these individual customers, so far as we know.
I'm sure they do through taxes, right?
It's a tax rate.
Yeah, I'm sure they do through the taxes, but the towns look.
Yeah, but the taxes would be spread throughout the whole town as opposed
Correct.
to these 7
Correct.
people.
But it's still if you applied that, and I use these numbers, I think it was 28 cents. If you took regional as an example, if you took the $10 million that they're charging their towns, not their customers, their towns for fire service, and you apply it the way we apply our hydrants, they would have to add another 28 cents onto their water rate that they're charging right now. So we're already $1 below them, and you would add another 28 cents onto their water rate. But they're mitigating their water rate by shifting the expense of fire to the town, not to the water customer.
All right, thank you. I mean, I get the sense, I mean, we're not gouging. I just wanted to have a sense of, you know,
Right.
so it seems, I mean, both companies are charging differently, but it doesn't seem as though the MDC is gouging. I wasn't here in 2013, so I'm just kind of wondering, what was the policy? What was the thinking behind doubling the customer service charge for non-member towns? What is our policy here at the MDC when you're a member town versus a non-member town?
So if I may,
Why?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
the policy didn't change in 2013, the amount changed. We've always charged a non-member town charge for our non-member towns going back to the 40s. The difference was in 2013, we went from $14 per month and we made it $100. So we got ourselves in a jam there by making that decision that we went from $14 to $100. And so we got sued, class action suit. We lost the suit. It cost us about $8.5 million in a lawsuit. And then we took that $8.5 million loss and we applied it to everyone, you know, because we have to make up that money. So So it was the amount, the customer service non-member town for non-member towns has always been there, Commissioner. It's just that we raised the rate, well above what it was for everybody else.
So understanding that it's always been there, I'm just,
Because there's no sewers from them.
what's the benefit to being a member town versus a non-member town? I mean, aside from the lower rate. Do we as member towns incur additional expenses that non-member towns don't incur, and that therefore, we should be fairly well justified in seeking these additional amounts from them because they're not otherwise contributing to this entire system that's been built up over the last 100 years?
Yeah, so if I may, sure.
go ahead, please.
So the discussion has been forever, and I just reiterated what others have said before me, and I agree with it, is, the most expensive component of the MDC is its sewer system, and now the Clean Water Project. And the benefit we give to our member towns is clean, cheap water. So you have this massive expense on the sewer side, and remember, every time you drink water and flush your toilet, it goes to the most expensive component of the MDC, and that expense is unforgiving. And we give, in return, our member towns, we give them cheap water. And so the logic would be a non-member town may have their own sewer system, right? They may have their own sewer system, and they don't have any involvement in the expense of our sewer system. But, I'll use, East Granby as an example. And this is an odd one. They're a non-member town. They were purposely excluded from the ordinances that was passed, but they have our water. They only have 291 customers. They have our water, and they also send us their sewer. But they do have a sewer system in their town that gets that sewer to us. But they're not under the ordinance, the Clean Water Act, Clean Water, whatever ordinance that was. They don't pay the clean water surcharge. You have to be a member town to pay the clean water surcharge. You have to have water and sewer and be a member town.
And just last question, in South Windsor, where this is arising as an issue,
Glastonbury, sorry.
this is the 7 customers we're talking about, it's arising in Glastonbury?
Yeah, there's, right? Yes. I'm sorry, there is one in South Windsor as well.
They both have their own sewer systems and
Yeah, they have
are
our
not
water.
subject to the clean water charges?
They have in the case of Glastonbury, they have their own sewer system. And does the customer in South Windsor, they've got, the town's got their own sewer system. So we're just talking about water here, Commissioner.
Got it, thank you.
Commissioner DeBella, do you still have a question? Did it? Okay, Commissioner Salemi and then Commissioner Patel.
Yeah, just through you, Mr. Chairman, and for Commissioner Gill about South Windsor. I'm very familiar with South Windsor and the difference between South Windsor and East Harbor. I can actually probably roll a bowling ball from my house to South Windsor. That's that close to South Windsor. It's one house away. But and as Scott said, there's very different rates. There's a street in South Windsor where there's people on one side of the street have Connecticut Water Company and people on the other side have the MDC. And as he said, they're paying nearly 3 times as much on their side. But you can't, it's not apples for apples in any, not even in water alone, because their system is under pressure. Ours is a gravity system, Connecticut Water Company system is under pressure. So they have a lot more equipment that they need to like, for instance, to put a fire out, that, their pump's got to be working, otherwise nothing's coming out of the hydrant, So essentially, they do have their own sewer system, but it doesn't even cover half the town in South Windsor. So they have charges, they have sewer charges like we have, but they don't have the clean water charge, which is a major component of our end on your water bill. So it's hard to make direct comparisons in Farmington or in South Windsor, but South Windsor has a very small capital improvement charge if they have anything left at all. They haven't built anything in a long time. So it's probably the cheapest, I shouldn't say cheapest, the least expensive water in the district is probably South Windsor. It's probably, one of the least expensive. But it's not an apples for apples comparison at any point. There's there's some major difference with every part of it, so.
Commissioner Patel.
Question was why our non-member town pay more. It's common sense that member towns invested millions of dollars over the years on all this infrastructure. So for that, those who did not pay and want to benefit, obviously they are paying more. Simple. And then you can compare everywhere, every other company and all other, that's basically nonsense.
Okay, no question there, all right, gotcha. Commissioner Gardo.
Thank you, Commissioner Gardo here. This is confusing, but it seems to be very simple. Non-member towns are being charged twice for the same thing. That's not fair, all right? So I believe that the ordinance should be written that they pay once for, and not twice. And then this customer will pay us the bill that they owe us. That's how I read this. Would you, am I not right or am I wrong, Mr. Chairman?
I think you're correct.
Okay.
Is that it, Pete? Is that Peter? Yep, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we ought to also take into consideration, in addition to the previous lawsuit that cost us 8, 10 million, whatever it was, and we have no idea how long these double bills have been going on, but obviously there's more money there that was going to be compiled from day one. But MDC is it's always alleged we're not development friendly, and I think this, and while certainly, you know, 7,000, whatever the double fee is per business, it's not necessarily going to impact development. I think it would be a good faith effort, one, to avoid another lawsuit that's going to cost us more than $42,000 and end it. But also send a message that we are user-friendly as it comes to development. And I agree with Mr. Gardo that, you know, fair is fair. And this is a complete reversal from where I was several years ago. Just my thoughts.
Anyone else have an opinion? It will, if we approve.
Yeah, yeah. So, so you want a question. Do you want a recommendation from us in terms of what we're proposing, or do you want to just work it out?
I would like that.
Okay, so what we would propose would be the insight in all of the issues that we dealt with over the years with our non-member towns is they've always paid for 1 meter, a customer service charge, and they paid the non-member town for that same meter. And was what we have always been doing. And then in 2013, we raised the price to $100 for the non-member town charge, and it caused all hell break loose, right? And now we added the fire service. So what we're proposing is to not charge, you're gonna charge the customer service charge for the fire service, because our member towns have to pay that too. We added all of anyone in our member towns, we give them a fire meter, they have to pay a customer service charge. That $486, they have to pay that. So what we're suggesting is you pay that just like our member town does. You're paying the customer service charge for your domestic, the non-member town charge for the domestic, and then you pay the fire service charge for that fire service meter, but you don't pay the customer service charge non-member town for that same fire meter. And then the CIP piece, which is peanuts really, it's not a lot, but you could, remember in our non-member town, you also have a CIP charge on any meter. So how much is that, Kelly?
The CIP charge is also based on the size of.
No, I know, but how much revenue do you know? Is that part of the 84,000?
Yes,
Okay.
that's half.
So we would propose that the customer service charge for the fire service would be for a 6-inch meter or any size meter. They would pay that because that's what our member towns are paying, but they wouldn't have to pay the non-member town charge or the CIP, because they're already paying it on the domestic meter size, right? So that would be what we propose. And we could talk about it in more detail at the government.
You'll bring all this.
Yes, we'll bring examples, yeah, we'll compare, bring examples. But it is, we didn't want to, have to shut someone off for fire service because they're not paying the bill. And it is, in hindsight, looking back, that maybe it is unfair for.
How would we deal with those customers that, would we give them a refund, or would we just say this is the policy going forward?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. We've done that in the past, right? So we've had to look at how much, when we bring it to government, we'll look at how much revenue we've received, how much we'd have to give back. We only started doing this, what was the date? This year, right?
Or no, 2024.
What was the year that we started?
I thought last one.
No,
Probably some meters back in 2023.
23. So what was approved in the ordinance was how, the engineering guidelines on how we decide if a fire service needs a meter. But we'll give you the amounts of how much revenue, how far to go back, give you some options.
That sounds fair.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That's great.
I would much prefer that all that you just discussed come back to this committee so that we absolutely know what's being referred, and then this committee could take action and recommend referral to government committee.
Yeah, I think we're going to have a special meeting.
product.
We have a couple of
Yeah,
items
that's
we
fine.
had to bump on this agenda.
Yep,
So
no
we could
problem.
perhaps do a special meeting sooner than later and get that back. Would that be okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
So we
Anybody else?
finished product to.
So, is that okay with everyone?
Great.
We're
Okay.
just going to keep this on the agenda for now.
It's gonna be referred back to staff to get us that detail, and then we'll have it again at the next meeting, special meeting. Yes,
Scott, you're gonna include the issue of fire service, how the town pays us out of the tax rate.
Yes.
okay, very good. All right. That sounds good. All right, thanks, everyone. Next item. Number 7, is it? Yeah. Report on South Windsor customers near Sullivan Avenue and Heritage Drive. Why are we reporting them?
So we already did present this to the Water Bureau a number of months ago, and this is really just an update. Dave Banker is going to give us an update.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, so Dave Banker, Assistant Manager of Technical Services here at the district. Good afternoon, everyone. So if we just go to the next slide when we're ready there. Okay. So we did come to you, at least when was the last time? 2022. We may have brought it up last year as well in passing. So there's a portion of our exclusive service area, which is basically was given to us in 1988, which is the area that the MDC has to serve up to in South Windsor. We discovered that Connecticut Water Company had built water mains in the 90s to serve customers in a portion of that service area, which had been guaranteed to us. So looking up at the map there, it's the area in question is Heritage Drive and some customers on Sullivan Avenue. Again, the state went through the Water Utility Coordinating Committee process in 2017, and each of the utilities reaffirmed that their exclusive service areas, they want to continue to serve those. We participated in that process as well as Connecticut Water. That wasn't brought up because this wasn't known at that portion. So when we discovered the issue, we're looking at actually extending a water main up Sullivan and then over to the west to loop it, so that we have had some main breaks, and we've affected the town hall and a shopping plaza with Stop and Shop and some other customers there within South Windsor. So we wanted to loop or connect the water mains to improve the service area. So while reviewing the project area, we discovered that Connecticut Water had extended the water mains into our service area. So we brought it up, the discussion with them at that time. We also approached the town. We had both sides look into their records, and we didn't find any records that either we or Connecticut Water had approved this. So We can continue on to the next slide. Thank you. So the solution, since we're already planning on extending a water main into the area, is that the district will take over the customers within our ESA area. So as we plan to extend the water main, we will connect our new water main to the customers to take over the infrastructure on Heritage Drive from Connecticut Water. And then also there's 5 customers along Sullivan Avenue. So we will connect those customers on Sullivan Avenue to MDC's main once it's installed and approved. The process, the timeline that we're looking at for this is the late spring, early summer. It's coordinated with DOT. They're planning to pave Sullivan Avenue this summer. They did a little skim coat over it last winter just to get through it because they knew our project was coming along. We've been talking to them, so they're holding off on their paving, and we're going to extend the water main. We've been working with DOT. Due to the roadway, it's going to be night work for the water main construction. And we have to wait until basically late May for the paving plants to be open during the nighttime periods to do the pavement restoration as the water main's installed. Go to the next slide. So the 19 customers on Sullivan Avenue and Heritage Drive that the district will be taking over are currently Connecticut Water customers. They're all residential customers. So this is a comparison of the 2 bills basically from their current charge on the right side for South Windsor customers with Connecticut Water, and then on the district side is on the left side. So as you can see, the itemized bill here, it's based off 80 CCFs, which is, hold on. So that's approximately 164 gallons a day of usage for the customers. That's an average rate across the MDC service area. So they get the regular customer service charge for a 5/8 inch meter, $14.98 per month times 12 months. They get the non-member town customer service charge that we've been talking about thus far in the meeting. So that's basically a repeat of the domestic customer service charge. And then it's the water consumption charge, and then there's a CIP surcharge on the bill. So for the district side, the annual total is about $686. If you look over to the right side with Connecticut Water, they get a customer service charge, they get the consumption charge, and then there's also a water infrastructure charge for improvements that Connecticut Water makes. So that's the WICA charge. And that totals up for the same water consumption to about $852 per year. So as the customers are transferred over to the district side, they should see on average about $165 per year reduction in their costs. So we are going to reach out to the customers with a joint letter from the MDC and Connecticut Water, who we've been working with. We want to wait until after the Water Bureau presentation to officially reach out to them with that letter. We're going to also proceed then with a neighborhood meeting in the area or at the town hall, which is pretty close by, to meet with the customers. And then also just to discuss with them, the other change will be they'll be going from a quarterly billing to a monthly billing. So that was all I had for the update. If there's any questions.
Dave, one second, but Dave, did we ever approach the idea that we've lost, I don't know, $100,000 or something going back those many years that we haven't collected from those customers that we should have been? Has that ever come into the discussion?
So we did have some discussions about that, but basically at this point, since no one could find any records going back to that point, I mean, we just have to move from this point onwards. So
And they haven't been using our water.
Yeah, that's true. But we
I understand.
Right. But you had a question.
Just a quick question. And so about how much actual construction has to take place, in the individual properties in order to make the switch? What has to actually be done on the ones that are going to receive our water?
So for the customers that will be transferring over to the MDC, we've worked with Connecticut Water. They all have copper water services. So our plan will be for the customers on Sullivan Avenue, we will extend a new water service from our new water main to their property line and then install a meter pit and then connect to the existing service after that. So really there's minimal work within the house when we make that transfer, and then we'll install a meter on our side. Then Connecticut Water will remove their meter from the basement and then put a spacer in there. So then the customers will be receiving their water from MDC at that point, and we'll be billing them from that day forward. So it's work within the public right-of-way up to the property line and the installation of the meter pit. And then after that, it's nothing on the customer side except the removal of Connecticut Water's meter from the basement.
Is there, in this area, is this a pressurized part of CWC's system? And they have like pressure reducing valves in the house that they're gonna have to either change or get rid of or something, or?
So we've looked at their pressures. So I think Connecticut Water is about 80 psi, so it's not exceedingly high. And then our side is about 10 less than that.
I'm surprised because it was a lot higher than that, and nearby it's a lot higher than that, but you know. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Do we basically inspect our franchise areas for their integrity? I mean, in terms of, are there any other possible encroachments that could be made? Something, I mean, this is small with regards to Connecticut Water and the MDC, but are there any possible other situations, or is that something we think about or we don't think about, or what have you?
Yeah, if I may. Yeah, go ahead. Let me just say this, Dave. So obviously, as we know, the WOOC, which was created in 85.
Yeah, 80, 45 around, and then the ESAs were finalized in 88.
85. So the state of Connecticut dictates who has what area, and there's a process to go through to make, changes in those areas. And we've done that over the years as an industry. This was a situation where no one asked us. I don't know what happened. It was 1990s or whatever the date was. But to the question, we are, anyone who wants to connect to our system has to go through a process. Obviously, we have, the system has built in measuring sticks to make sure no one tries to connect to it without affecting our water pressure, what have you. And most of our areas are already built out, except for maybe the Glastonbury's of the world. And there's really no other entities out in our non-member towns that have the capability of servicing. South Windsor and Farmington are probably those two towns, and East Granby area is probably two of those towns that have, water utilities other than the MDC in the general area. But I can't answer your question specifically, Commissioner. We don't have any process where we're going around checking to make sure no one's connected to our system. But and today we would definitely be well aware of somebody trying to connect to our system.
Given asking the opposite, that people who should be connected to our system are connected to another water system?
I can
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
chime in. So subsequent to the 2017 Water Utility Coordinating Committee process, so the WOOCs that went through the whole basically process again, the state of Connecticut put out a statewide public mapping of ESAs along with utility service areas. So we did also review our full service area in response to this, and then we didn't identify any other locations because the state does shade in where basically utilities have extended water mains to. It doesn't give you the exact location, but it's it's an overlay just to say there's water in this area type of thing. So we did review that and then confirm that there aren't any other areas shown within DPH's mapping to indicate that anyone's extended into our ESA.
Good, thank you. I think that answers that, right?
Yes.
Commissioner, thank you. Okay, so in the interest of time, why don't we move along then to number 8, the discussion of Lake McDonough Recreation, if we could keep that kind of brief.
Yeah, real quick. So this topic comes up a lot, obviously every year since COVID. And we did repost and advertise. HR did advertise for lifeguards this year. We raised the rate to $21, I believe it was $21. And we received one applicant. And so I have said this in the past, that COVID has changed a lot in a lot of different industries. As you know, a lot of people are working from home, and that's what's occurring in our cities. But it's also a lot of young people are now working at Walmart or at other locations, and they're paying $25 an hour. I had a meeting with my staff, my patrol staff, Friday, and our Sergeant Harding made a very important point, and I never thought of this, and it's related to HB 6004, which is when the state of Connecticut took away the indemnity of fire, police, and first responders. And Sergeant Harding is actually our officer that is the trainer and manages the lifeguards, or has been managing lifeguards for years. And what he said to me on Friday was, this bill has actually had more to do with young people, and probably more so their parents. It does mention emergency responders. The concern about liability of not doing their job, whether it's, not saving someone drowns in front of them, being held personally liable. His opinion was that has more to do with the reason why we're not getting lifeguards than anything else. But the end result is we only got one applicant. We are going to reach out to the towns of New Hartford and Barkhamsted to see how many lifeguards they have for their beach, and to see if there's any way of working with them to share resources if they have any. But we are going to reach out to them. But we just wanted Water Bureau to know we only received one applicant.
Buddy, didn't you have a question about maybe let Gene something about coming into Hartford and seeing if we could get a social?
You asking me?
Is that you, Bud?
Yeah, but, well, I know that we were gonna try, I know that Mr. Holloway was hoping that there was some way we could get, students and from Hartford interested in becoming lifeguards and maybe doing part of this, but I think that, I mean, it's a difficult job, first of all, and it takes a lot of training. It's not something you can just jump in and do. And as Scott said, that the liability thing it's a real issue. It's not an issue when you think about it, but when you go to sign on a dotted line, it becomes an issue, and if we can't indemnify the people that are working for us out there, then I think it gets difficult no matter where we find somebody from. I think the MDC would have to indemnify anybody that's out there. So, and I don't know what you were saying, Scott, that we can't? Or
Well, the bill, the bill says that you shall indemnify police officers, a municipality. But it also says that in such event, the officer has a judgment entered against him or her. So in other words, they get sued for sleeping in the chair. They can be held financially liable. So does that apply to lifeguards? I don't know, but all I'm suggesting is our officers are saying that this bill has a lot to do with. Remember, most of our young people, lifeguards, they're junior and high school, seniors in high school. And so you have parents saying, well, why am I going to put my family's wealth at risk by my high school student not performing or not saving somebody or not, seeing someone drowning or what have you. So I never thought of it that way, but it makes a lot of sense. But we'll see what we can do with the towns, because they have a program, and see if there's any thing we can do together.
Yes, Commissioner Bella?
Scott, wasn't Deep involved in proposing to do something in this area because they have the same problem?
Well, Deep simply just raised their, I said this before, I was a lifeguard back in college, and the state of Connecticut had a lifeguard division. They had an individual that was in charge of the lifeguards across the state of Connecticut, all state parks. They laid that person off years ago. I'm talking 15 years ago. And so that, the state has, they indemnify themselves. The state allows people to swim at your own risk. We just had our visit with our insurance carrier up there, as we do every year. And it's their recommendation and my recommendation, we do not follow that same policy. Swim at your own risk is not an option for MDC. So, yeah,
Okay,
okay.
yeah, Commissioner Curry, then we gotta move, we're getting on there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be very quick.
Yes, thank you.
Based on your comments, Scott, would there be, well, there definitely would be an advantage to MDC as well as our member towns, but across the state to any municipality. Is it possible that we could have discussions with DEEP and maybe they would next session consider amending that bill to exempt lifeguards or make it clear that lifeguards aren't included, and maybe that'll have a positive impact.
Absolutely, Commissioner, and what I've said at the last presentation we had on this, one thing that we think would be manageable would be utilizing Lake Madonna as a passive recreation. So in other words, instead of having lifeguards and instead of having, active swimming, you could have utilized the park as a park, and people could recreate there without swimming. And that would be, a benefit to the community, whoever would like to use it. So that is an opportunity, but we definitely can talk to DEEP about that.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on then to items 9 and 10, if we could just get a quick summary of that, and then we can move to get general public comments after that.
Yeah, Crystal.
Chris?
Chris Levesque.
Chris Levesque, come on up. Come on down.
Chris Levesque. Just report out on our water main leaks for the month of February. We had 42, trending a little higher than normal, but due to some of the cold weather events that we had, it's sort of ebbs and flows, but we've seen a sort of things settle out in March a bit. So sometimes it's just weather dependent, but we've had a little cold spurt this winter, so.
And revenues. How are we doing on revenues?
Oh, Kelly's going to cover the revenues.
Okay.
Revenue report?
Please.
Okay. This will be quick and easy.
I like it.
We're 2 months into the year. So the revenue report in front of you is for January and February. And nice to report that through February, we're 16.7% into the year, and we're running revenues at 17.3% of budget. So overall, we're at 17.3% of budget, which is a good place to be 2 months in. When you look at individual revenue accounts throughout the budget, please remember, water sales are somewhat cyclical. We are trending just fine at 14.4% of budget just in 2 months. Remember, we have an increase in the water rate, which is helpful, but our big months are the summer months usually. That's where we make up the differences across the budget year. Just a few highlights, if you will. We've added the property change of ownership fee, which you'll see in other revenues. We had a larger employer fund contribution from our surplus to cover water expenses, which you'll remember from the budget from last year when we went through the 25 budget, and you'll see that we made that contribution already. And the prior year, if you look at it, it was a smaller amount that we were contributing, and we hadn't made that contribution yet when you're comparing it to 24. So those are the things that I wanted to just point out when you're looking at the budget. But just the overall is that we're trending well so far.
Excellent. Questions?
Any questions?
Okay, yes.
Thank you.
Ricardo, I'm sorry, you didn't have a question, I'm sorry. Oh, thank you, Kelly. Okay, opportunity for general public comments? Anyone? And let's see, then we have commissioner requests for future agenda items. Commissioner Salemi, didn't you have one?
You know what, I'll just send it to you. I think it's too detailed for me.
Okay, I like that. You're trying to get in time for your own meeting, I know.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
And this is not a future agenda item, but I don't know if there's anywhere else to stick this, but I got a thing, and I don't know if it's in today's paper, it's gonna be tomorrow, but there's a 2025 Connecticut River Environmental Summit happening down in Essex. Well, does the, we provide water through the west branch that goes down the Connecticut River. We also have a few plants that provide other things.
We invited.
Are we invited?
That's a good question.
Clean water project.
Is it the,
It's at the Connecticut River Museum.
okay.
Does he know who's providing it? Does it say who's leading it, rather?
It's just called the 2025 Connecticut River Valley Environmental Summit.
Yeah.
I guess,
Yeah, I'll look into it. I'm not sure if we've been invited, but we'll definitely look.
yeah. ConnecticutRiverMuseum.org.
Okay.
So I don't know if we were invited or if you want to send someone down.
Yeah, okay,
Okay.
great.
Can I have a motion to adjourn then, please?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thanks, everyone. We kept